The smaller infants, sometimes 3 or 4 infants, would actually sleep on that bed there. And then either 4 or 5 children would sleep into this room here. Again, they would not have had their own rooms. Now, life in the 1800s was certainly no piece of cake or walk in the park. Because as we've come through the house, you notice that we haven't passed any bathrooms. That's because there's no plumbing in the house, and there were no bathrooms that had been built into the house. So the bathrooms were built outside, and those were called either privies or the outhouse. Pretty much crudely constructed, just the box that you sit on and you do your business. So we can kind of imagine that during the winter years, as the temperature is quite cold, or the rainy season, when mud was to form outside, would you particularly want to leave the house to go to the bathroom outside in the middle of the night? Probably not. So in the rooms, on the floor, see if you can locate a device that you would use as your potty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, potty.
Okay. So those were called chamber pots. It was pretty standard practice that it was always either the youngest child or the child who would wake up the latest in the morning that had to clean each of those pots every day. So I'm sure that you certainly want to be the first one up in the mornings.
I might have saw these kids sleeping in.
So this room here, this was also Violet Whaley's room. And Violet Whaley, there were some pretty tragic things that had happened, even for her young life. Through the 1800s, it was not uncommon for young girls at the age of 12, 13, 14, and 15 to get married. In fact, that was pretty much the standard age in which you would get married. And then by the time you were 16, of course, then you were starting to have your children. You would start to raise your family. Now, Violet Whaley didn't get married until she was 19, so that put her on that far upper end of almost unacceptability. A lot of the town folks, as well as the women, would get together and they would talk about Violet. She's 19 years old and she's just now getting married. My gosh, there must be something wrong with her. Yuck, 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 yuck. So the man that married her, he was kind of after the family money. He thought that he could get some money from the family. But once he had found out that he wasn't going to get money, he up and left her. And they were only married for 2 weeks. Now, they had gone on a trip. They had gone to the East Coast on a trip. He had found, or he had received information indicating that he wasn't going to receive any money from Mr. Whaley in any way. So he had sent her back by herself on the train. All through the 1800s, women never ever came back without an escort, but she had come back on her own. Again, the townspeople started talking about her. Wow, she was sent back on her own. Her husband has left her. There is something definitely wrong with Violet Whaley. She started to go into a deep depression. In her diary, she does write, as each day passes, I feel more and more melancholy, which is just another word for feeling depressed. So during that first year of her depression, she tried to kill herself. She tried to drown herself in the well in the backyard here. However, if it wasn't for her hoop skirt, when she jumped into the well, that hoop skirt got caught on the side, and she wasn't able to fall all the way into that hole to drown herself. Mr. Whaley had heard the commotion going on. He was able to get her up out of there. She was then put on suicide watch for nearly 2 years. So each of the family members took a watch on her 24 hours a day here in this room. Well, it's not quite clear, but one evening, Violet was able to come out of the room late at night, and she'd come down the steps, and she'd gone to the center room downstairs, which was Mr. Whaley's study or his library. In one of the drawers, he kept a key to a lockbox. She somehow got a hold of that key to that lockbox, and in that lockbox was a pistol. She'd taken that pistol out. She'd brought it back up here to her room that evening. She had gotten up very early the next morning. Mr. Whaley and Mrs. Whaley had heard her get up, and they asked her, "Violet, are you okay?" And Violet said, "Yes, yes I am." And she crept down the stairs, came out the back door, and had gone outside to the privy. Just a few seconds later, bang!
Holy
She shot herself. She meant to shoot herself in the heart, therefore killing herself instantly. But the barrel of the gun was just a little too long. She had pointed it at her chest. Her fingers weren't quite long enough to reach around the grip of that gun. And so when it went off, the bullet did strike her, but it didn't kill her instantly. Mr. and Mrs. Whaley heard the shot. They came running down the stairs. They came out through the door. Out there on the privy floor, there was lots of blood that was coming out of her. She had hit an artery. They drug her in to the very first room at the bottom here. They had set her on the couch. That special couch was called a settee. Mr. Whaley ran as fast as he could into the Old Town area to try and get the doctor. However, by the time he had come back, 20 minutes had elapsed, and Violet bled out. She died very, very slowly there in that room downstairs. So a lot of people will feel, not only in this room, but also in that room there, that there's a kind of a heaviness or a sadness that is about the house.